Man, these bankers be crazy. They want me to start banking. Freaking exploiting everybody. For my freaking usury. Too bad. My religion don't allow it. My morals don't allow it. Who gives a fuck about them? There's no good and evil. Just start banking and making that banking money. Anyway, let's see how the bankers started to take over the United States of America. The first bank,
In 1790, less than 3 years after the Constitution had been signed, the money changers struck again. The newly appointed first Secretary of the Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, proposed a bill to the Congress calling for a new, privately owned central bank.
Why does it always have to be privately owned? Why does it always have to be centralized? Because that's how the pyramid works. That's how they enslave everybody.
Coincidentally, that was the very year that Amschel Rothschild made his pronouncement from his flagship bank in Frankfurt.
Let me issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who writes the laws.
Alexander Hamilton was a tool of the international bankers, and he wanted to create the U.S. Bank, the BUS, or the Bank of the United States, and did so.
Interestingly, one of Hamilton's first jobs after graduating from law school...
This guy looks like he got a small date. But anyway, maybe the Amschels and the Bowers and those people, maybe they were enslaved. And they were like, how the fuck can we get to the top? And then they manifested that. Because let's be honest, they ain't the top players. Like, you cannot be the top player and start in the 19th century, bro. That's when the Rothschilds kinda took over. But anyway, let's see Hamilton's little schemes.
In 1782 was as an aide to Robert Morris, the head of the Bank of North America. In fact, the year before, Hamilton had written Morris a letter saying, "A national debt, if it is not excessive, will be to us a national blessing." A blessing to whom?
After a year of intense debate, in 1791, Congress passed the bill and gave it a 20-year charter.
Man, these guys have to have those obelisks, massive freaking Egyptian obelisks ready so they can do their little magic to make this banking shit work. Because if the illusions of this banking and money and all of this illusionary deceptions would be revealed to the sheep, to the normies, to the collective consciousness, man, people would come with the freaking guns and the pitchforks and burn these guys and make some steak, boy. But our collective consciousness is done, son. It's done. It's captured by these magicians and has been captured since the beginning.
The new bank was to be called the First Bank of the United States, or BUS. Here we are in front of the First Bank of the United States in Philadelphia. The bank was given a monopoly on printing U.S. currency, even though 80% of its stock would be held by private investors.
Makes sense.
The other 20% would be purchased by the U.S. government. But the reason was not to give the government a piece of the action, it was to provide the capital for the other 80% owners. As with the old Bank of North America and the Bank of England before that, the stockholders never paid the full amount for their shares. The U.S. government put up their initial $2 million in cash. Then the bank, through the old magic of fractional reserve lending, made loans to its charter investors so they could come up with the remaining $8 million of capital needed for this risk-free investment.
Like the Bank of England, the name of the Bank of the United States was deliberately chosen to hide
Smart.
the fact that it was privately controlled.
You
And like the
smart.
Bank of England, the names of the investors in the bank were never revealed. Many years later,
Who are those guys? Why you gotta work in the shadows? Let's see your face. Well, I understand why you gotta do it. Because you do the most.
it was a common saying that the Rothschilds were the power behind the old Bank of the United States.
The bank was sold to Congress as a way to bring stability to the banking system and eliminate inflation.
Always with these empty words, empty promises. Man, this relationship with these bankers and these elites, I want a way out of this. The only way out is that place over there. You see that green? Those trees? Yeah, go touch some trees, bro. Get some sunlight. Yeah, that's the answer. That's how you... But still, you still freaking have to still take part of this very one-sided relationship. Very abusive relationship. Man, can I blame some mental illness? I have some mental health problems because of this abusive relationship with the bankers. It's really wrecking my mental health. So please, please, Freemason judges, can I have a divorce from this? Can I just take my, what's that, social credit number? Can they just erase that? Can I just not pay taxes to these guys anymore? Can I just start doing my own thing somewhere? And maybe get some other people? Can we get an island somewhere where we can start a new thing going on? Which would probably end up same. Actually, if we would be connected to nature, we would be happy biochemically. We would understand the laws of nature. We would work together with nature. Maybe then we would be happy enough so we wouldn't start scheming and deceptions with it and taking advantage and abusing people lesser than ourselves.
So what happened? Over the first 5 years, the U.S. government borrowed $8.2 million from the Bank of the United States. In the same 5-year period, prices rose by 72%. Jefferson, as the new Secretary of State, watched the borrowing with sadness and frustration, unable to stop it.
I wish it were possible to obtain a single amendment to our Constitution, taking from the federal government the power of borrowing.
Millions of Americans feel the same way today. They watch in helpless frustration as the federal government borrows the American economy into oblivion. So, although it was called the first...
But nobody does anything because they numb. They numb to this shit. Do they really? This was made 30 years ago. They got way more gone. Way more in depth. Well, that tsunami is coming. Maybe then people wake up when they start dying.
Bank of the United States, it was not the first attempt at a privately owned central bank in this country. As with the Bank of North America, the government put up most of the cash to get this private bank going. Then the bankers loaned the money to each other to buy the remaining stock in the bank.
Smart.
It was a scam, plain and simple.
Oh no shit,
and they
bro.
wouldn't be able to get away with it for long. But first, we have to travel back to Europe to see how a single man was able to manipulate the entire British economy by obtaining the first news of Napoleon's final defeat.
Yeah, everybody has heard about this story. Who wants to know what the hell is going on? If you haven't, your researching abilities suck. But you come to the right place. So here's some base knowledge how the Rothschilds really became super powerful.
Here in Paris, the Bank of France was organized in 1800, just like the Bank of England. But Napoleon decided France had to break free of debt, and he never trusted the Bank of France. He declared that when a government is dependent upon bankers for money, the bankers, not the leaders of the government, are in control.
Yeah, he said the right stuff, but what did he really do? Just make more money than the bankers? Come on, man, Napoleon. He was not Rothschild, he was a Freemason. Plain and simple, he was part of the plan. They always put these psyop leaders. They play a little bit of controlled opposition. They gain people's trust with the little Pied Piper stories like, yeah, the bankers are evil. But in the end, he made freaking Rothschild super powerful. He made a bunch of money to the bankers. The bankers, well, you'll see.
The hand that gives is above the hand that takes. Money has no motherland. Financiers are without patriotism and without decency. Their sole object is gain.
Back in America, unexpected help was about to arrive. In 1800, Thomas Jefferson narrowly defeated John Adams to become the third president of the United States. By 1803, Jefferson and Napoleon had struck a deal. The U.S. would give Napoleon $3 million in gold in exchange for a huge chunk of territory west of the Mississippi River.
How can a guy looking like this be charismatic? Getting people behind him? Let's be honest. This was some 18th or 19th century psyops. Plain and simple, boy. They just play the same old rule playbook over and over again, and generations keep forgetting what happened. That's how they do it.
The Louisiana Purchase.
Louisiana Purchase, that was pretty good for the United States though. They made incredible amounts of money, man-made money out of that purchase.
With that $3 million, Napoleon quickly forged an army and set off across Europe, conquering everything in his path. But the Bank of England quickly rose to oppose him. They financed every nation in his path, reaping the enormous profits of war. Prussia, Austria, and finally Russia all went heavily into debt in a futile attempt to stop Napoleon. 4 years later, with the main French army in Russia, 30-year-old Nathan Rothschild, the head of the London office of the Rothschild family, personally took charge of a bold plan to smuggle a much-needed shipment of gold right through France to finance an attack by the Duke of Wellington from Spain. Nathan later bragged at a dinner party in London that it was the best business he'd ever done. Little did he know that he would do much better business in the near future. Wellington's attacks from the south and other defeats eventually forced Napoleon to abdicate, and Louis XVIII was crowned king. Napoleon was exiled to Elba, a tiny island off the coast of Italy, supposedly exiled from France forever. While Napoleon was in exile on Elba, temporarily defeated by England with the financial help of the Rothschilds, America was trying to break free of its central bank as well.
In 1811, a bill was put before Congress to renew the charter of the Bank of the United States. The debate grew very heated, and the legislatures of both Pennsylvania and Virginia passed resolutions asking Congress to kill the bank.
The press corps of the day attacked the bank openly, calling it a great swindle, a vulture, a viper, and a cobra. Oh, to have an independent press once again in America.
A congressman named P.B. Porter attacked the bank from the floor of Congress, saying if the bank's charter was renewed, Congress, quote, will have planted in the bosom of this Constitution a viper, which one day or another will sting the liberties of this country to the heart. Close quote. Prospects didn't look that good for the bank. Some writers have even claimed that Nathan Rothschild warned that the United States would find itself involved in a most disastrous war if the bank's charter were not renewed. But it wasn't enough. When the smoke had cleared, the renewal bill was defeated by a single vote in the House and was deadlocked in the Senate.
By now, America's fourth president, James Madison, was in the White House. Remember, Madison was a staunch opponent of the bank. His vice president, George Clinton, broke a tie in the Senate and sent the bank into oblivion. Within 5 months, England attacked the U.S., and the War of 1812 was on. But the British were still busy fighting Napoleon, and so the War of 1812 ended in a draw in 1814. Though the money changers were temporarily down, they were far from out.
They're never out.
It would take them only another 2 years to bring back their bank bigger and stronger than ever.
That's how they always do it. They always come back. Bigger, stronger, better. They can manifest this shit. Always. Just like I said in the previous video, you cut one head, freaking 10 other heads pop out. That's how these rats do it. Okay, let's get to the Battle of Waterloo. How freaking Nathan was so smart.
But now, let's return to Napoleon.
Incredible money.
Because nothing else in history more aptly demonstrates the ingenuity of the Rothschild family than their control of the British stock market after Waterloo. In 1815, a year after the end of the War of 1812 in America, Napoleon escaped his exile and returned to Paris. French troops were sent out to capture him, but such was his charisma that the soldiers rallied around...
What? That dude had no charisma in that picture. But maybe in the real life it was different. He was really good at speaking French and putting his one arm under the jacket, and he got a lot of money from some guy. Just some guy over there, and whatever, bro.
...on their old leader and hailed him as their emperor once again. In March of 1815, Napoleon equipped an army which Britain's Duke of Wellington defeated less than 90 days later at Waterloo. Some writers claim Napoleon borrowed £5 million from the Bank of England to rearm. But it appears these funds actually came from the Ouvard banking house in Paris. Nevertheless, from about this point on, it was not unusual for privately controlled central banks to finance both sides in a war. Why would a central bank finance opposing sides in a war? Because war is the biggest debt generator of them all. A nation will borrow any amount for victory. The ultimate loser
There
is
the normies go. The sheep's in the field. Just freaking building this freaking matrix. Man, never do this. Never.
on just enough to hold out the vain hope of victory, and the ultimate winner is given enough to win. Besides, such loans are usually conditioned upon the guarantee that the victor will honor the debts of the vanquished. This is the Waterloo battlefield about 200 miles northeast of Paris in what today is Belgium. Here Napoleon suffered his final defeat, but not before thousands of French and Englishmen gave their lives on a steamy summer day in July of 1850.
Just a little blood ritual or whatever. Maybe that's why they do these little wars, to get the best and the strongest man to leave the nations, leave this plane, to go somewhere better.
Right over there, on June 18th,
Nice pyramid.
1815, 74,000 French troops met 67,000 troops from Britain and other European nations. The outcome was certainly in doubt. In fact, had Napoleon attacked a few hours earlier, he would probably have won the battle. But no matter who won or lost, back in London, Nathan Rothschild planned to use the opportunity to try to seize control over the British stock and bond market and possibly
Smart.
even the Bank of England. Rothschild stationed a trusted agent, a man named Rothworth, on the north side of the battlefield, closer to the English Channel. Once the battle had been decided, Rothworth took off for the Channel. He delivered the news to Nathan Rothschild a full 24 hours before Wellington's own courier. Rothschild hurried to the stock market and took up his usual position in front of an ancient pillar. All eyes were on him. The Rothschilds had a legendary communications network.
Yeah, boy.
If Wellington had been defeated,
Stop doing the work for the elites, bro. No matter how much they give you that dollar bill, start doing this to them.
and Napoleon was loose on the continent again, Britain's financial situation would become grave indeed. Rothschild looked saddened. He stood there motionless, eyes downcast. Then suddenly he began selling. Other nervous investors saw that Rothschild was selling. It could only mean one thing. Napoleon must have won, Wellington must have lost. The market plummeted. Soon everyone was selling their consols, their British government bonds, and prices dropped sharply. But then Rothschild started secretly buying up the consols to his agents for only a fraction of their worth hours before. Myths, legends, you say? 100 years later, the New York Times ran a story which said that Nathan's grandson had attempted to secure a court order to suppress a book with this stock market story in it. The Rothschild family claimed the story was untrue and libelous, but the court denied the Rothschilds' request and ordered the family to pay all court costs. What's even more interesting about this story is that some authors claim that the day after the Battle of Waterloo, in a matter of hours, Nathan Rothschild came to dominate not only the bond market, but the Bank of England as well. Whether or not the Rothschild family seized control of the Bank of England, the first privately owned central bank in a major European nation and the wealthiest, one thing is certain. By the mid-1800s, the Rothschilds were the richest family in the world, bar none. They dominated the new government bond markets and branched into other banks and industrial concerns. In fact, the rest of the 19th century was known as the Age of the Rothschilds.
Not according to my history books in the schools I went to. They never taught about me. What, the Rothschilds? I never heard about the age of the Rothschilds. What the hell are you talking about?
Despite this overwhelming wealth, the family has generally cultivated an aura of invisibility. Although the family controls scores of industrial, commercial, mining, and tourist corporations, only a handful bear the Rothschild name. By the end of the 19th century, one expert estimated that the Rothschild family controlled half the wealth of the world. Whatever the extent of their vast wealth, it is reasonable to assume that their percentage of the world's wealth has increased since then. But since the turn of the century, the Rothschilds have cultivated the notion that their power has somehow waned even as their wealth increases.
Yeah, I trust the Rothschilds. Whatever they say, it's probably true, bro. I don't have no reasons to doubt them. They're so smart, so clever, and yada yada yada. That's today's lesson. Now you know about the origin story of the Rothschild supervillain. What else do we got? The second bank of the United States. That's tomorrow. You think these guys quit after a couple failures there? No way, bro. No way. These guys just keep coming back. No pain, no gain. They have unlimited endurance. Because they got unlimited power from their little Haynes thoughts and all that energy that they get from doing that black magic or whatever. They have unlimited energy, guys. That's the key. To dominate everybody on this earth. Domination. Total domination. That's the only option. Banking.